welcome back. We are Outside the Box. This is an EMS podcast driving clinical performance in and around the city of Sugar Land. I'm your host, Kevin. Today we're talking about some standards and expectations. And these are the kind of things you can continue to expect here on Outside the Box. We'll talk about ideas and concepts around practicing medicine that make us better at what we do when we deliver that care. When we talk about clinical concepts, come join us over at Sirens and Stethoscopes. We'll talk about practice ideas and medicine over there. But today, as we're talking about standards, I have with me Adriel Ramirez. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And this is going to be a fun conversation. This is good. The prep was really fun on this one. So, Adriel, why don't you tell us about you and some of your background?
Okay, so sorry about the little squeaky chair. I guess where I should start is I was in the Marine Corps from 2010 to 2015, and that sort of segues really into the conversation we're going to have today is where I got started early on in my life, young 20s, of having someone give me an example or a standard to follow and, set that expectation from there. After I got out of the Marine Corps, I came back home, and how I met you, I became a coach at CrossFit Katy. From there, I was offered an opportunity to become an owner. Jumped on that one. That was always my dream, and those opportunities don't come very often. Bought in, and that was in 2017. So it's been 6 years now as an owner at CrossFit Katy, and loving every minute of it. And that further kind of goes down that path and that career of setting standards now for other people and providing a pathway for them to excel.
And you have a little bit of a reputation when it comes to standards that those of us trying to meet your standard, we kind of go with the no news is good news from Adriel, that you're being watched. And oh man, your heart rate goes up a little bit more when you are. But when Adriel walks away and doesn't give a correction, then you may have done something pretty okay at that point. There's no fluff. That is not Adriel by any means. But you give encouragement. You do give support, and you give positive feedback. And that's what we're going to talk about, because there's a difference between positive feedback, the encouragement, and the fluff. Which is why you're here to talk about it, because you just have this knack for it.
Thank you.
Let's start with what might be an obvious question, but why should we care about standards? What makes this important?
Well, I would say what makes it important for you as an individual is knowing yourself and knowing what you're capable of and knowing how to improve. If you don't have a bar to gauge anything on, how do you know you're getting better? How do you know you are making advancements in your personal life, your health, your skills, whatever goals you happen to be? I mean, this can be anything. But if you're just fly by night, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this thing, then you'll never know if you're improving if you don't have some way to set up a standard against it.
So just open-ended measurement doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah, it's like eyeballing
figuring out this end point, right? And we talk about with some of our practice that we talk about, we're going to deliver interventions. We're going to try and produce an outcome of knowing what that outcome is supposed to be, so we know if we arrive there or not. I would relate it the same way with the standard of, what you're aiming for, what you're trying to accomplish, and either you did or didn't arrive there. But you got to have a standard.
Exactly. You either made it or you didn't, and it makes decisions making a lot easier.
Yeah. And what are some places you draw your personal standards from?
Ooh, man, that's people who have coached me, taught me throughout my life, right? I had two different wrestling coaches in high school, two very different styles, right? There's also those different styles of leadership, and I would say my first coach was much more, okay, here is the what I expect of you, when it kind of, maybe it reflects in my style now, but when you did the right thing, and if you did really well, you'd get that praise out of it. If you didn't do it, it's just honest feedback. It didn't make it. Then you have that other style of coaching where maybe if you don't make it, it's a little more intense, right? We've all had that, maybe that sort of boss or that sort of coach that they like to express their feelings a little more harshly when you don't meet their exact standard. And I don't think that helps anybody. It didn't help me, right? It didn't motivate me to better myself. So I think for me, a lot of that started when I was young.
Okay.
That.
And you don't like that other style, but yeah, you go to the Marine Corps. Which is
true, which is kind of predicated on that sort of thing. But it was very different. Okay, the second coach, for example, right, who shall not be named. I'm not gonna do that. But that second coach, it felt like the feedback you're getting, that more harsh feedback, is not in an effort to make you better.
Mm-hmm.
There's no purpose behind it. It's just someone venting, expressing rage, probably mad at themselves because maybe they didn't teach you what they wanted. Maybe I'm digging too deep into that. But the Marine Corps, at least in my experience, was, they're yelling at you. It gets very harsh, but they have a purpose, right? And the ultimate purpose is to save your life, keep you alive, and to keep you and your buddies alive, right? Which is, something that they strive for it at an intense level. And, when lives are at stake, your profession, for example, that has to be something that you adhere to and not bring it down just because it's good enough. People's lives are at stake.
I like that. We'll talk about good enough as we get through and the value of this thick skin that it's a difficult balance because we see all kinds of horrible things in the world. And I encourage you not become an unfeeling rock. We don't want that. We want to remain somewhat humane and human beings, but not so soft. Like we've got to find a balance between.
We need to have that. We need to have empathy.
I like empathy.
Right?
Yeah.
We need empathy and humanity for people to understand their perspectives and to reach out in kind and help them however they may need it.
Yeah. Nice, man. Okay. We talked about timing of establishing a standard or an expectation. Tell me your thoughts on that. When is it important to have a standard?
You need to have that standard ready before the process probably even started. Before you have presented someone, for my example, like a client, one of my clients. And my experience, I've learned through trial and error, everyone makes mistakes, right? That I need to have this standard set for whatever athlete I'm talking to before I even have this conversation with them. I don't need to make this standard up as I go, because one of two things is going to happen if I do that. I can set the standard too high. And if it is way too high off the bat and they fail immediately and they fail so objectively, that can just crush them. It can crush a lot of their confidence. And what you need to build in order to have someone successful in their work or an athlete is to create confidence. So you don't want to crush them harshly right off the bat, and then you're like, and then they're going to feel like you've dumbed things down for them, and it's still not going to make them feel good when they hit the next standard, because it's like, they don't really want that, they want this higher thing. But if you set the standard too low and then boom, they blow past it, now there's no growth, and then they're going to feel like you're artificially raising the bar on them again because you've just raised it up. So you need to know your athlete, know your employee, know your trainees, know your students, whoever it happens to be, before the process gets started, so that you know where you want them to hit. And it needs to be that sweet spot.
Yeah, and let's take, your coaching as an example of this, that there's a standard in a movement. We'll pick any barbell movement. There's a standard. There's the points of performance. And, we've had Chase in talking about coaching and teaching and some of these same cues that go with there. But not everybody has the same ability. But everybody has the same standard. Help us with that. How do we take somebody who is a performance athlete, hitting these performance points, flirting with this standard? You're there. Beginner athlete, just starting to teach. We're breaking this down into specific cues for this person, but it's still the same standard. How does that scaling happen? What does that look like? How do you do that?
You judge that one, athlete by athlete. That can be based on a lot of things like physical ability, strength, mobility. A lot of it can be their coachability. Some of those intangible things that are hard to figure out. Coachability, mental fortitude, all of those things kind of play into it. And you have to make that judgment as you learn your athlete on how you're going to approach them and how much you need to bring, not the standard down, but the intensity of how we reach it. Right, you could use like a squat snatch, for example. You have this high level athlete. Obviously I want them to pull 100 kilos. Boom, squat snatch, stand nice and tall. I want the beginner athlete to do that same movement all the way up through that full squat, stand nice and tall. Maybe not with 100 kilos, maybe with a broomstick, right? Maybe with just their hands, so they can learn the movement pattern. They're still meeting the standard of the movement, but the intensity of that implementation may not be as high. And then as they progress, we increase that intensity.
All right. In this example, the weight is kind of the intensity that we're able to adjust here.
Yeah, that's the thing you adjust.
but the standard never changes.
Standard, not in the movement.
The depth of the squat stays the same.
Yes.
The lockout stays the same. All these points of performance stay the same.
Exactly.
And I think that's a very wonderful point to emphasize, that it's not the standard that changes. It's how we're approaching the standard. I like the word the intensity of it.
How we reach the standard.
What are some benefits to goal is to do this when we went 100 kilogram squat snatch? I can't do it. Well, I mean, I don't think I'm telling you anything you don't know.
Not a lot of people can.
How do I not be crushed in this when I go approach a barbell today to do this movement, knowing that that's my end goal is 100 kilos?
I mean, I think in that aspect, you have to look kind of inside yourself and think maybe a bigger picture of how anything worth doing is A, difficult, and B, takes time. Anything. It doesn't matter if it's getting fit. It doesn't matter if it's becoming a doctor. It doesn't matter if it's learning to, crochet. Like, all of these things take time to and difficulty to learn, right? And if you are never going to be comfortable, what's that old quote? If you're never comfortable being a foolish beginner, you'll never be a graceful master.
I like it.
That applies to anything that is worth doing, right? So you have to realize when you go into something that's a goal or a challenge or whatever it is, time. There is a process. There is no skipping ahead on any of that stuff. There is no shortcuts.
I agree with you on this, that the time and effort we put in is what makes the accomplishment worthwhile. And I think I can predict what you'd say, but our goal setting comes into that we can set the easy wins. We can go for the low-hanging fruit, and I can accomplish all the things in the world. Look at all my check boxes of things. For you personally, we'll only speak for ourselves personally here because we're talking, would that make you feel kind of cheap on accomplishment? Like, how would you feel if it was just easy little things that didn't take effort, or you just walk in today and you do it? You're like, see what I accomplished? How do you anticipate you would feel?
You're kind of fooling yourself at that point if these are things that they may be easy things to do, but you need to look at those things and be like, are these things getting me to my goal? Right? It's easy to make a checklist of know nothing things and check it off and feel good about it, but if that big goal is snatching 100 kilos or whatever it happens to be, are they actually getting you there, or is it just filler time to make you feel good?
Spinning your wheels in the mud.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Okay, there are things when I'm having a busy, hectic day that I add to my to-do list that I have already done for the pure satisfaction of crossing them off. All right, full disclosure. But we look at these big goals. We look at this having to adjust intensity. Got to kind of look at these small wins, kind of, I guess, benchmarks on the way. Because I think if it's just start point, end point, I think that's just kind of soul crushing. Yeah. To look at that, these benchmarks, progress points along the way get us these little wins, but even then we might fall short of these benchmarks and fail to reach that.
Yes.
And that's an uncomfortable feeling. Tell us about you and some of your personal reconciliation on. Okay, have you failed at something?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah.
All right.
Who
cool.
hasn't? Who hasn't?
Tell us about you. You approach any goal, and just today's just not the day you got it.
Yeah, which happens. Well, that's if you're striving to be better at anything, you are probably going to fail more often than not, and that's a good thing because you don't learn anything by winning. Winning just reinforces what you've done before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it. Yeah.
But if you fail, okay, something wasn't up to snuff right now. What is that thing? It lets you be introspective. What is that thing? What did I do? What was out of my control? What did I not foresee? How do I change that? How do I improve? Repeated failure is only going to lead to refinement. Right? When a blacksmith forges a blade and they pull it out of the fire, it's not done. It needs to be refined. It needs to be cut down in little ways to make that edge.
Yeah.
And that's what failure does. It hones you to be more focused on your goal and improve yourself.
Yeah, and I think it's worth putting the little caveat on that. It's reviewing the failure. It's identifying what points failed is where we get the growth.
Yes. necessary. And a lot of people have a hard time doing that.
This is a really hard time.
They like to blame other things.
We like to blame other things, or we adjust that standard and we're okay with good enough.
Good enough.
Right? And then
there we are, good enough.
Right? And then we come back down. And whole big Challenger, space shuttle, normalization of deviancy, normalization of deviance stuff that it is. We just start getting further away from the standard. That becomes the new standard. We get further away more, becomes the new standard. And then eventually here we are watered down in unsafe circumstances in whatever industry. I mean, you water down the standard of how you're pulling a barbell, that then becomes unsafe and dangerous. You can wreck yourself pretty good. So this isn't just isolated in any given industry kind of thing. You water down the standard and performance just goes.
Will become institutionalized, right? Like if I let one person slack on this one thing and people see me letting them slack on that one thing, then someone else is going to do it. And then you just said it's unsafe. Even in my business, it's unsafe. You pass that on to something else more serious, EMS, and all of a sudden, they said we could, be a little loose on this rule here, and then everyone else, and then it becomes the new rule, which is that lower standard. And now everyone's in trouble.
And that's one of the things we talk about. It's all the extreme ownership end of stuff, but it's the what you allow becomes the new standard. The behavior you allow is the new expectation. All of those things. It's not what you preach; it's what you tolerate.
It's like kids.
Actual quote, right? But man, I think that's how we fight off that good enough. Is that we acknowledge that we're going to fail, and failing sucks,
but
it can. So initially, it stings.
It stings. It's always going to not feel great.
It stings,
and that's okay.
I happen to like reviewing this, finding some points of failure, going at it again, and boy, does that feel good to accomplish it the next time around, to do it better the next time, or even the next 3-4 times.
Repeatability, right?
Repeatability. That's not the worst thing to not get it on the first try.
No, I don't. No, not if it's, like I said, if it's worth doing, it's difficult.
You said something when we talked last time, and it really resonated with me about being committed to something or being interested into something.
Yeah, I think our mutual friend, maybe Larry White.
Yeah,
he said this to me, and it has really stuck with me. It was that if you're interested in something, you'll always take the easy route, right? You'll do what's convenient. If you are committed to doing something, you'll do whatever it takes to do that one thing, right? And that really lets you know, okay, is this something I'm into? Like, just is that switch flipped in your mind? If it's not, then you're just interested. And now this is, something you dabble in.
Which isn't a terrible thing.
No, it's great to have those things.
But I think you're right, identifying what is it?
How much you're going to invest.
Right? I mean, there's all kinds of things I'm interested in. I imagine you have interest as well.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I got to get up early for that, I'm not really interested in. All right, we talk about, just like we were before, we get the training end in the marathon training now, and it'd be, I got to get these miles. I'm committed to these miles.
Yeah.
Man, it was rough getting up some of those mornings and pulling those miles, then off to work, then off all the kids' activities. And I was committed to that. Well, goal hasn't happened yet. Committed to earning that goal versus I'm interested in using yoga to increase my flexibility. I'm not getting up at 4:15 to do yoga. Right? I'm not that committed. This is probably why I still can't touch my toes. And you give me a hard time when we're doing certain things. But
one day,
someday, I got to be committed.
Got to be committed. Yeah, exactly.
Right? I really like that comment. Because it is. We go at something. I would say if you get something the first time, every time you go at it, like, believe in yourself more than that. Like,
there's more in there.
There's a lot. Like, you shouldn't get it right. Maybe you get some things right the first time. I like it with some of our crews. I've told them, you get it right one time, good chance it's luck. Do it a second time and get it right, okay, it's less likely luck as we go. So to do something right and do it once right, that's not good enough. We need that repeatability.
Repeatability, it's really important. Consistency,
but man, that's just what comes to my mind. If you hit it right every time, the first time, every time, like you're not trying the right stuff. You need
to increase the challenge.
Pick something tougher. I don't know if that's a confidence thing, if it's you don't think you can do more than that, or it's I'm that uncomfortable with failing, which again sucks. But like, fail, like, go be brave enough to suck at something new is an expression I heard, and I love it.
Yeah, that's great. People get comfortable. People get comfortable in their routines and their ruts, I talk about that a lot in the gym. I've been preaching this lately of majority of people scale, which is that's what we expect.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone's RXing, we need to raise the standard.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So majority of people scale. But if you are always scaling the same movement the same way every single time, and you've been scaling toe to bar the same way for 3 years, and you have not gotten any better at toe to bar, now you are in routine and stagnation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And you are not improving. Do something different. Find a different pathway to whatever goal it may happen to be so that you can at least not get bored.
Yeah.
But also maybe find something else about yourself that maybe, maybe I'm weak here or strong here. Maybe I can improve this, improve that, and eventually get those toe to bar or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's really important to avoid being comfortable and not push ourselves. And that's what I think.
I agree. I like the expression came from a Navy SEAL, Stu Smith, I think his name was, of get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of it as kind of a circle on the floor. And there's your comfort zone. And sometimes we're comfortable stepping out, but you keep one foot in that comfort zone so you know where home base is, and you step out.
Yeah.
But the further you step out, the further this circle expands, and the further into unknown things you're now able to venture while still staying somewhat close to comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not an unfamiliar feeling to go out with things you don't know, things you're probably going to fail. You
Adapt.
know, there are sometimes I feel bold in a day, and I love going at something that I know I'm going to fail. I'm like, let's go. Let's just see how bad this can go, because I'm not going to get it the first time. I don't know anything about this. I don't, within reason, I go at it, and it's, wow, man, it was entertaining how bad that was. But here's what I learned, right? Experience is that fabulous teacher. And with a lot of things, I love the expression that you can't learn to swim by reading a book. You can read all the theory in the world on squat snatch. You can know all the right words. You got to go do.
Man, that was a good one. I've never heard that.
That's
great.
I love them. At a previous agency, we had a simulation training area, and we called it the swimming pool. And we had an area where you practice skills. That was the shallow end, but then we shove you off into the deep end.
Okay.
Because at some point you got to get in the water, and you got to start treading. You got to know how this water feels when it splashes in your face, and you're uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah.
Again, I was a water call instructor, so I loved being
Yeah,
at the pool.
you're all about that.
But yeah, any other thought? Like, we keep coming back to it of fail. Like, go fail at something. How do you, as a coach, you see people that are timid. They come in, they're a little timid. This is kind of an intimidating thing.
Yeah.
That you have a crowd of people that are comfortable enough failing at things that just come into the gym and they go at it. And then the social circles, it's just like it's an intimidating place for an outsider to come in.
Yes.
And even we as members, we try to welcome people. You as the staff try to welcome. It's still, I don't know.
Yeah.
How do you draw this timid person out and try to encourage them to believe it's okay to fail something?
So that one you have to really get in there and like kind of pull it out of them. It depends on on the athlete in front of you, but you have to. I kind of alluded to this earlier, but building that confidence, right? Whatever the movements are for the day, pull them aside and be like, hey, okay, this is what we're doing today. You give them that extra attention, ask them, how they feel comfortable, give them some demonstration, and then let them show you what they are capable of. Okay, and once again, set that standard right there before you've approached them. You need to be like, all right, I'm going to make sure if the movements are complicated for that day, all right, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do squat snatch.
Yeah.
On your first day of CrossFit. That's irresponsible.
We did it on our second day.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. So, we're going to do dumbbell snatch, right? Okay. Which teaches them the basics of the movement. It's just, it's that pathway on the journey to accomplishing that. We bring it down. They show me what they can do. And then, give it time. That's why we offer that 2-day free trial, right? I like to get them in twice. And then they start to really see that, that after they're done, it hurts while you're doing it, but when you're done, it feels good.
Mm-hmm.
And that tends to like loosen people up, make sure you give them, everyone gets those fist bumps, that feeling of accomplishment, that community feeling.
Yeah.
Really is what, in my opinion, keeps people coming back.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's succeeding together. Everyone's suffering together,
There's
Suffering makes
yeah.
compatriots, right?
Yeah.
That brings people together. And you really see it on people's faces when they're out there, giving it everything they got.
Yeah.
So
I like it. And I think that comes around, like that's a good leadership lesson in it to come back around. We had Marcelo on a little while ago. We talked about relationships and how that communication happens with relationships. And even Chase talked a little bit about these relationships, that you can't talk with everybody the same way. People hear this message as a different way. He was fun because we were talking about junior high kids in gym class too.
I can't even imagine.
Somehow I can really relate to that. But it seems like the same kind of stuff, that we're going to establish kind of relationship. You got to have some of this trust. Because at some point I'm going to say, that's all I can do, Adriel. Like I've done it all. And what are you going to tell me?
You probably got another one in you.
Yeah, right? Every time. Yes, you do. And it's really hard sometimes for an individual to push past that. If we've established that's my threshold, man, I feel like I'm up against it. The suffering is at the max, whatever it may be. Is there an approach to that? Is there a delicacy to that? Is there a, nope, to hell with it, I'm just going to tell you you're better than you think you are. Go.
Yeah, that's my approach. I mean, if they're really in it, and you can see it in their faces, you just tell them you believe in them. Because I do believe in them and I don't, say those things just to say them. If I'm telling you can do something, it's because I believe you can do it, right? And more often than not, they can, right? They just have to believe in themselves, build that confidence.
And let's be real, it may not be today. I believe you can do more than what you're doing right here, because we talked about the long game. And sure, maybe I think you can do one or two more. I can do one or two more now. But when it's no, I think you can get that lift. Stop quitting on this lift. Stop accepting that is appropriate for this lift. Like, get back in there, do some more, and realize it might be day, week, month of this kind of progress. But here's my confidence and belief in you. I think that's an interesting thing. We've gotten into this world of very immediate gratification. So us as individuals, I want my immediate win
Now.
And we'd like to say it's a generational thing. We'll say, no, dang millennial. It's not. It's not.
So human beings are wired.
Right?
Dopamine and all that.
Right. My kids are that way. I'm that way. Like the same thing. I go to the gym. I pull that barbell. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like really? Like really? That it is this long game, and it's a difficult thing. It's a disciplined thing. It's a committed thing. Let me talk about this, like playing to win, because you also made some good comments about training versus competition and performance. And tell me your thoughts on the difference between training to meet the standard and then competing or performance or the show where you need to put it out there.
To me, the big difference between competing and training is, in training, you are actively trying to improve yourself in whatever facet it happened to be that day, depending on, whatever workout you're doing. I'm working on my muscle ups, I'm working on my cardio, my skills, whatever it happens to be. So maybe you are altering some things, changing some things, modifying some things, focusing on certain aspects of things, not maybe giving 100% on, trying to, 100% cardio, puking your guts out, but focusing on the skill or whatever it happens to be. You're trying to get better, which means you might fail in the middle of trying to get better. When you're competing, when you're in the show, you are trying to display those skills to your maximum ability, right? And that changes your mindset. That changes how you approach it. You're going for being as efficient as you possibly can and not failing. That is that moment when everything is on the line, where we actually, we were trying to avoid that failure by using all the failure we have learned from previously in training to execute.
And you had made comments before about that performance, that competition it cannot be a daily thing. It's not sustainable to be that level of performance daily.
100%. No one can be 100% on every day, all day.
And here's a challenge that I'm going to throw to you and everybody out there, is that 6, 8, 10 times a day, this ambulance shows up, our crew steps off, and they have to be on. And then they come back tomorrow, and again, 6, 8, 10, 12 times you're on. The difference between the training, being prepared for failure, and this performance where failure is not an option is a difficult dynamic to navigate and go back and forth between. In a 24-hour period, we might be going, just when you came up today, we're out back practicing and training some things, and at a moment's notice, those personnel need to jump in the truck and be out to perform, and then be able to come back from it and back and forth. I say that to emphasize some of the wellness points. Like take care of yourselves. This is cognitively and emotionally taxing to perform at that level, right? Whatever it is. And you go do it multiple times a day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exhausting. So make sure you're fueled properly with good nutrition. Make sure you're hydrated. Make sure you're rested. All these things that performing at that maximum level is what we want to do. It's what the public expects us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And all we can really do is that best prep in the training, that build up and be ready for it. Any other thoughts on that kind of dynamic?
I mean, it's just like what you said, taking care of yourself, right? It's really easy, especially when I've worked 12 on, 12 off sort of things, in previous career, right? And you get into that pattern of just, boom, you're on shift, you get through that, you get off shift, and it's kind of this like repeating, it's rut, again, routine
Mm-hmm.
stagnation. You need to, in between those times when you're not supposed to be on, you need to find things that are going to help out you with your wellness. You talked about nutrition, you talked about, like hydration, but exercise,
Mm-hmm.
right? Finding hobbies like are huge. Find something that will take your mind away from whatever the stressor happens to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just that little bit can make a big difference to
Yeah.
keeping you on. Exercise releases dopamine. Kind of talked about that earlier. Everyone always feels better when it's over.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's that on-off switch. That's a really interesting dynamic to have to, in your career that people have to monitor, and it's hard.
It is tough. And I agree. This hobbies thing, we got an awful lot of people that'll go work at other fire departments on their days off. And I mean, I'm not going to tell you how to live your lives
So we gotta
away
make
from
money.
here, but make sure you're taking care of yourselves. I'm a fan of hobbies away from work, that anytime I had a second job, I'd come off shift and go work another industry. I'd go work something else, get a break from this. And I think it goes into our standards that if you get worn down on holding your standards. So if we come into this and we are perpetually in the gauntlet, right? We're in this barrage of performance. At some point we get tired, we get worn down.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the inner voice creeps in there and that's all right. That's not so bad.
Yep.
And then here come our slipping standards. Instead of being able to step away, we refresh, we come back at it, and it's no, I know where my high standard is, and I can reach to it. I mean, it's all the time in parenting. Thank God I'm married to an amazing woman that I get to parent with, and we pass this back and forth all the time, that the kids start wearing down, and it just starts to be whatever you want, so that it's some peace and quiet, and it's no, you know what? I'm worn down. I'm going to step out. I'm going to need you to take this for a minute. I'll be right back. And just getting the break from it. So do that. Don't let your performance suffer on account of never stepping out of the performance mode, really. But
I've been there with the kids.
let's talk about this failure thing one more time. Is it fair to call anything less than perfect execution a failure?
No. Is it fair? No, I don't think that's fair. No. Perfect is this vaunted area that theoretically no one can touch, right? Perfect is this idea that we are all striving for, but I wouldn't say that is I want to see that every time, because if it was perfect every time, then there's something like there's more in there. That's not no, that is definitely, I wouldn't agree with that.
So what's a better way to package that? You're growing through this, you're making these benchmarks. How do we have good job accomplishing this benchmark, but it still that's not the end of the road?
So you being clear, right? Being clear, when I talk about my demonstrations, like points of performance. When I say those things, that's because that's what I want you thinking about when you're hitting your lift, right? Hitting those points of performance. And then if you can execute those, now we can get into like the minutia of the detail, right? The timing, what direction everything is heading in, how you are executing it, how you're receiving the bar, all of those things. So there's not just, there's those big picture things, which is why I say them, right?
Yeah.
But then as soon as we hit those big picture things, boom, now we start getting granular and we start bringing it down and down. There's always like finer levels of detail to get to. And that's that journey to that vaunted idea we just talked about, perfection.
And I like that it is vaunted that we can't control every last variable. Even when I'm the only individual involved, there's no way that every lift will be exactly the same. That there'll be some factor, whether I take a little bit deeper of a breath this time than I did last time. Whatever it may be, there's going to be something. There's going to be little variances. So to go for this perfection, like that's engineering, that's machinery. Like machines turn out perfect every time, the same thing every time. I think it is a valuable point that not reaching the standard. And we talked about this. I know failure is a word that resonates with you, that you look at it and it's like, that's the failure. Start working. Instead of being scared of the word failure, and I'm scared of failure, scared of the word, that benchmark progress is worth noting as long as that's not the end of it. Like that's when it becomes good enough and we get stuck at that spot. But if we acknowledge, yep, here was some progress, what's the next step? Here's some more progress, what's the next step? I don't know that we necessarily need to call it failure every time, or even it's just, here's the things I need to improve. Like
it's just the progression, right? It's that progression to whatever your end goal happens to be, right? You have to, there's always, you can have the beginning, you can have the end, and then you have the journey, which is the most important part, right? And you establish these benchmarks, but it's really important to realize that is not the end.
Yeah.
Right? And that this is just that big stepping stone. And like we talked about earlier with that checklist of things that don't matter. No, these things need to be the big things. These need to be the things that matter, that will get you and become the sum of the whole that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this feedback thing, because
my favorite part.
Adriel feedback is like, I hear about it. Like Kathy comes home and she's like, oh man, Adriel said good job on something. It's like the coveted prize
I appreciate
of the gym.
Yeah.
So, tell us some of your thoughts on feedback, fluff versus positive reinforcement, encouragement. What are some thoughts there?
Well, I think fluff, you kind of talked about that. I think my philosophy is that if I'm saying something to you, in the middle of your workout or your lift or whatever it is, I'm saying it for a purpose because I am seeing something that needs to be remarked upon, right? So more often than not, it's going to be a correction. Okay, and that that serves a dual purpose of just keeping you safe, but also making you better, which is the whole idea. If I see you execute something I think particularly well, I will definitely throw something your way because then I want you thinking about that thing. Oh, okay, I did really well on my my third pull, right? Okay, what particularly about that felt good? Let me try to replicate that, right? And then there's also that triage. Right, I'm looking at the whole thing and being like, what will do the most good right now? And you zero in on that thing because you can't look at someone and be like, well, you got this, you got that, and the other, and then you're going to overwhelm them. You know how it is, and then they don't know what to do.
Yeah,
you have to focus on the big things and then take it down one by one.
I like that you emphasized targeted feedback. I think it goes to the original conversation about expectations and standards. You know what the end goal is. So for you again made this a purpose. Made comments for a purpose. Instead of just, hey, Adriel, good job. That was nice today. And you're like, oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Right? This thing was good. Do that thing again. And we try to roll a lot into our education that it's very easy to pick out the things that need to improve. Here's all the things you did wrong. Do these things differently. And sometimes we overlook the things that were done well and identifying those and kind of reinforcing that I think there's just as much value in reinforcing these three things. Do that again. That was what you want to see. Here's some other things that need to go with it that need improvement. I think we got a lot of value on both sides of that.
Absolutely.
That's behavior.
That's exactly how I like to approach any sort of coaching. If you definitely need to reward the good things that they're doing to keep them fresh in their minds because there is so much to worry about. I'm like, oh, I did this part well, but also to keep that standard in their mind. Don't let that slip. Because if you set someone's expectation in themselves to a higher level because you say something like that, then they're going to internalize that and believe it. Be like, oh, okay, I can do this from now on. That is how I do it.
You see that much impact externally, that you can influence expectations on somebody that much.
Yes.
I love it.
I've seen it.
I love it. Do it, right? Do it to people around you.
Important.
I think there's right there. So we're kind of like stepping back and forth between the individual side of holding standards and holding standards on somebody else as this external locus. I think it's valuable on both sides. I personally like the whole iron sharpens iron concept. Like have somebody next to you that works hard, that has the same high expectations, the same high standards. I'm a visual person. So at the very least, I see this and I see what success is looking like. And now in my mind, I can imagine what I'm doing and visualize it. But having that person next to you, what are your thoughts on this? You are very internally driven on this. You are very disciplined. I think you're a unique individual in this. Like I don't know that there's like a whole world of Adriels that are just like very internally driven on holding these standards of things. Yeah. But what's your take on that of having a battle buddy?
So yeah, no, I love that. One of my things that I always like to say is if you are the smartest person in the room, you probably need to find a different room.
I love that.
Because you're not. Yeah, you're not. And I didn't make that up, obviously. Like I got that from somewhere. But yeah, you're not getting any growth out of that, and that you can take that with intellectualism, education with what I just said there. That bleeds into so many other things. If you want to be a better athlete, and you are the best athlete in your gym, then maybe you need to find some other athletes. I'm not saying leave your gym. What I'm saying is find some training partners that maybe you can go hang out with once or twice a week, or find someone that can push you to that next level so that you can get better if that's your goal to be a better athlete, or be smarter, join a book club, whatever. Find people that are going to push you to make you a little uncomfortable. Like, oh man, I never saw it that way. Or working out, man, this guy is riding my butt every day. He's outlifting me, he's pushing me harder. I'm gonna try to beat him, and then all of a sudden, you both start getting better, like an exponential rate, because you have other people that hold you accountable.
The whole rising tide raises all
boats and all that. Yeah. Accountability.
Us human beings love competition, right? Like we don't like to lose. We don't want to fail. But you're right. That is good. You have that person. We have other people, or as somebody shows up in the gym and it's, oh man, I'm gonna have to work hard.
Yeah. Check that whiteboard for their name.
We get those partner workouts, and I'm like, oh man, who am I? Because you don't let us pick partners. We come to the gym and Adriel assigns us partners, because Adriel has more belief in some of us than we have in ourselves sometimes.
There you go.
Right. So let's come back to the coaching end. And is feedback always effective? And are you always going to get the results out of this person with your coaching?
In a perfect world, you would get it immediately, right?
No, right?
But no, absolutely not. It depends. It always depends on the athlete, right? Some athletes, first off with cues, the best cue is just the cue that works. Is the old saying. So some people, you just said you're a visual learner, right? So a lot of times with people, I'm like, hey, I want you to do this, and I will just do that in front of them, and boom, they got it. Okay, cool. And they'll replicate that. Some people are more audio, they want to hear what you want them to do with their body, or physical, right? They want you to put them in the positions that they need to be in, and then they can feel how they need to be. There's different, even words that will reach people in different ways. So you find whatever works, and then, with enough trial and error, boom, you get that result that you want. Hopefully. There are sometimes, how it is with certain people, that sometimes there's attitudes, maybe egos, that are uncomfortable with correction, right? And you can tell them what you want them to do till the cows come home, and some people just don't respond.
Yeah.
And that's when you run into, as a coach, that is a very difficult situation to encounter.
So essentially, we're starting with try again. But in the same thing, like we were talking about, doing something different, the old idea that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same, or expecting different results. Goes into any kind of the training environment too. You're right. If I do the same movement, the same scale, I'm not growing in it. At least fail at it a different way.
Exactly.
So I think that goes into the same. That's what I hear when you're talking about the coaching, same kind of stuff. You give me cues and direction, and I don't hear that message. It doesn't land. And you repackage it a different way and say it a different way, demonstrate it a different way, whatever it may be. You change something. And this person just never gets through. We just don't get the result. How do you as a coach, how's that feel? Like, how do you handle that one?
Ooh, well, first you take a deep breath, right? Because it is frustrating, and it is not frustration with the athlete. It is frustration with myself.
Should be,
because this is my craft.
That's what we're going to emphasize.
It should be.
Our
This
leadership
should be
that
frustration with myself,
right?
Because this is my craft. Right, I've been doing this for a long time, and I should have the requisite skill and experience to reach this person and get them to execute the movement I want the way I want them to. So yeah, it's really is, take a step back, right? And then really reach into that tool bag and really think about what you need to do to get them where you need it to be. And then analyze everything. Is this a body awareness issue? Is this a mobility issue, right? A lot of times with new athletes, it's those two things. And then once you take that stock, you figure out another way to tackle it again, right?
Yeah.
That's all you can do is just throw yourself back in there and try to be better.
Again, I like semantics. But if we look at this, the goal isn't for you to give a cue. The goal is for what the person does in responding to that cue.
Yes.
So you can give all the coaching in the world. The goal isn't for you to give coaching. The goal is for this athlete to perform based on your direction, the standard, the expectations you've communicated. So it's a very difficult thing for human beings at all, I think. As I said that. I told you that. I think the only effective message, though, is the message that lands.
Yeah.
Right? And I like the Marine Corps definition of tact that I learned. Tact was not like the fluffy. It was whatever means makes that message land. And the Marine Corps chooses some unique ways to communicate messages, but they get there.
Yeah.
That one stuck with me, that definition of tact. Whatever approach, the words get through and the message is received.
I like that.
I think that's the big thing that I wanted to pull out of this is not getting results. Try something different, because it's not, again, the goal isn't I'm going to say these words. Right? Don't pull early. That's not, no. The goal is that I don't actually pull early.
Yeah.
Maybe speaking from experience over here, but maybe I'll respond to coaching someday. But it's the message that lands, and that's the onus that's on us as the person sending the message. Whatever relation, take it home, right? Whatever. Take it to your family. Take it to the fire station. Take it to the gym. If you're giving somebody a message, they kind of have the responsibility to get that message to land.
Make sure they understand.
Right. So when it doesn't, try again. Doesn't, do it a different way. We gotta go at it a bit, because that's the right message in my mind. The right message is the one that lands.
Whatever it takes. Like I said, the best cue is the one that works.
The one that works.
So,
there's an expression that Kathy loves to give me that I've heard a couple of times, and I think you would appreciate, because you probably said at the same time, the same kind of thing, that feedback is a gift, right? Feedback is a gift, but that doesn't make it comfortable all the time, right? Like it's,
oh yeah, no, for sure. If you want good feedback, it's probably not going to be comfortable. Someone's honest with you, right?
What did you say to me? You said another one. Like you had these good ones.
Man, who knows?
Feedback versus validation.
Okay, yeah. Feedback versus validation. Yeah, okay. So more often than not, people just want the validation, right?
I want to hear nice things.
They want to hear nice things. I'm great. Yeah, I did it perfectly. I did it great, right? Made me feel good. But if someone is honest with you and wants you to be better, sure, they might praise you here and there, but they're going to give you honest feedback. A good friend, like, and you can take it that way too, a good friend is going to be real with you. So as a good coach, my feedback is going to be honest.
Yeah. Do you see that as a sign of respect for this person?
Yes.
For you to say, hey, Kevin, these things were not good. Here's how you need to improve them.
Yes.
Do you find that to be more respectful than, hey, good job, Kevin, you're doing okay?
Well, yeah, because I want you to believe that I have your best interests at heart, right? And I wouldn't tell you these things. Feedback is a gift. I wouldn't tell you these things if I didn't care.
Yeah.
Right? Or any athlete, I wouldn't tell them that because I want them to be better. I want them to improve.
Is feedback your love language? Is that just
that's my wife,
right? Oh,
I don't know.
So it is. So feedback, I think of that it is a way of showing that you care. I agree with that.
Oh yeah,
100%. That if you let somebody go around doing something incorrectly, because we don't know what we don't know either, is the other part. So somebody might be counting on your feedback, and if you're just, that might be uncomfortable, I'm going to keep that to myself, and I don't know any better, I think I'm doing well, I'm hitting the mark on this, but I personally appreciate that feedback, that you're not there. Here's some more things. And I haven't done it in a while because I have good feedback mechanisms, but even people who video their lifts, and in between lifts, they'll go look at this video. It is a feedback mechanism to see how this goes. Because let me tell you, things feel like they were great.
Then you watch the video.
And you watch the video. And,
oh, yeah.
Okay.
Important.
So there's a reason Adriel and I still have this ongoing relationship. That I get gifts all the time. But the feedback's important. Seeking feedback. Like, it's one thing to go give somebody feedback. I'm going to encourage you to go find feedback. Go ask somebody's thoughts on whatever this is. Hey, can you give me some eyes on this for a moment? Here's this email that I wrote. I wrote this email. It's kind of a high stakes one. Like, we read a lot of baloney emails that don't matter, but it's a high stakes email. I'm going to ask for something big. I'm making my case on something. Adriel, will you take a look at this? What do you read this to be? And poke some holes in it. This is all garbage. When we rewrite our clinical guidelines, I give them to some people to review, and that's usually my ask of them is tell me the ways this is going to fail. All right? Because there's the learning point. There's the improvement that we talked about is that feedback, that failure point, and then we can improve and go from there.
I mean, those people that come, like you just said, you're going to someone asking for feedback. Those people that come to me asking specifically for, direction in whatever, whatever they want to do, whatever lift or gymnastics, or in a specific, instance in class. Those are people that are putting a lot of trust in you. You're putting a lot of trust in them, right? You are, by having someone look at your email, they're putting a lot of trust in me by very specifically being like, hey, this is something that I really care about right now. And those are the ones that you really have to, as a coach, I'm putting an eye on. I'm like, okay, this person is motivated.
Yeah.
This person wants something out of this. Okay. And the more you are accepting to feedback, if you have someone that's willing to pour into you, then the more you're going to get.
As valuable, very valuable. I saw another expression of choosing your feedback wisely, that anybody will be happy to give you their opinion. That we choose this wisely, that it was don't take feedback from somebody you wouldn't go to for advice.
Oh,
right.
That's a good one.
And I think the feedback has value when somebody has similar standards, similar expectations, that if it's somebody that I hit it out of the park the first time every time. Okay, well, I'm like playing on a Little League ball field. Maybe I can play on a bigger field so that I actually have to work at it. But if that's who you go to for advice on how to hit a high standard, probably not going to get the best feedback to get you there.
Yeah.
That it's a valuable thing to go to the person for feedback who's willing to tell you, here's where you did not do well. And again, validation versus feedback. Like, well, I don't want that person's feedback because they just told me I'm terrible at this.
And then you're going to get garbage information.
Right. And then you just stay. And then the stagnation, not growing.
Yep.
Which sometimes I need validation that did this go the way I think it did? Oh, yeah, it did. Great. But feedback is a gift. Sometimes it's a gift we didn't know we wanted or that we needed.
But it's always useful.
But it's always there. It's always useful. So let's recap this a little bit. We talk about like the value of having a standard is what keeps us driving forward, keeps us growing. And it takes a lot of internal discipline sometimes.
It's easy to justify. It's easy to justify, especially internally, when you have these self-imposed standards. It's so easy for people to justify just being like, oh, maybe I was overreaching a little bit too much, and let's bring it down a little bit like that. So that's where that whole accountability, aspect comes into it.
Yeah.
And everyone has accountability a different way. Some people can just hold themselves accountable. They have that willpower.
Yeah.
Other people, if you don't have that kind of willpower, tell someone.
Yep.
Hey,
I've seen that of just even writing it down.
Whatever it can take. Yeah. Post it on Instagram. I have this thing I want to do. And then that you've put it out there. You put it out into the universe.
Yeah.
All right. Now it's your job to make that thing come true. Right. I'm not, not saying you have to do it today. I'm not saying you have to do it tomorrow. It is a journey. But hopefully just that little bit of motivation can set that standard for you. Bam. Here we go. It's out there.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That's a really good piece of accountability. Right. Also with it, like you're as good as the company you keep, especially when it comes to these standards and accountability. So be in a crowd that's going to push you. Like you want the push, go be with people who push themselves, push each other. Go be with that crowd. Right. Knowing the end goal is that standard. I love the that's my favorite one. Like knowing the end goal and then you know how the process is to get there.
Mm-hmm.
I was always the kid that worked mazes backwards because they were easier. Great. So decide where you want to end up, and then work it
I've
backwards.
never heard that trick.
No.
No.
Oh my gosh.
I always did them from the beginning.
Maybe I'm smarter than I give myself credit
Oh
for.
man, that's
It was so much easier working from in. You identify where you want to be. You know when you get there. You know when you're going in the right direction. If I say, hey, Adriel, just go west, there's an awful lot of west.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? But if it's go to San Antonio, like you could very easily overshoot San Antonio by just going west, right? But you would never know if you made it to the target because I didn't tell you what the endpoint was. But that's what our standard is telling us. Here's the standard. Here's the endpoint. Here's what we work towards. We talked about kind of communicating that clearly. Clear communication. I think that's the other thing too. People get put off by direct communication because it comes off as not fluffy, and
Yes,
I get a
people
little scared.
get turned off by bluntness, I guess, blunt hard truths maybe.
Yeah.
Just like, a lot of times someone will do something and I'm just like, nope. There's no dressing it up. There's no point in dressing it up. Just like, nope, that wasn't it.
Yeah.
Let's try this. But you have to reciprocate. You can't just be like, nope, do it again. Like, no. Try this. Try that. If you're not giving them feedback and giving them something to work on, you're just doing them a disservice.
Yeah.
Like you're not being a good teacher.
The last comment I think I'm going to roll in here is the failure piece. Like, don't be scared to fail. It's okay to fail. The time it's not okay to fail is when you just throw your hands in there and walk away from it, and that's the end of it. Like learn something from it.
It's always an opportunity.
Always an opportunity. You're not going to get it perfect every time, right? So take that as the feedback, as the learning. Be willing to evaluate that yourself and take some growing points from it. Feedback's a gift. Adriel, any other comments you want to throw in there? Any other thoughts you didn't get to share today?
No, man. I think that's all I got.
Man, good.
I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being here. Like we said, like this is good end. We have our company officers. We got some younger company officers going to be coming through, and we're trying to build leaders here. So we need this high performance expectation. Purely just in our industry, the public expects a very high standard of performance, and honestly, it might be an absurdly high standard. And I think it's their right to expect that.
Yeah.
It is our duty to do what we can to live up to that expectation. So the time we get locked into good enough is the time that we start compromising people's health, compromising people's safety and wellness, and we got to be better than that. And it's not easy because the things worth doing are not easy, and they take time and commitment.
Reminds me of when I was in the Marine Corps, I worked on aircraft, right? And you stick to the manual. Right, you stick to these directions that are written down because they always just told us any rule that we are looking at was written in blood because people's lives are at stake. Anytime you work on that aircraft, someone's going to fly on it. Their life is in your hands. So you have to adhere to those very, very strict standards because safety is paramount.
Talk about high stakes, man.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Adriel, thank you very much for being here, having this conversation. I enjoyed it.
Appreciate it, brother.
So that's what we got for you today. We'll catch you for the next one.